What do you do when you show up to your son's house and find your grandson outside in a thin shirt while everyone else eats warm food inside? How do you stay calm when your own family treats you like you are too old to matter and a child pays the price for it? Why did 4 simple words from me turn their whole world upside down? My name is Owen Carter. I am 61 years old. I live alone in a small house I bought long ago, when my back was stronger and my sleep was lighter. I worked most of my life in logistics, not the loud kind of work, the kind where you fix problems before people notice them. I learned to stay calm. I learned to listen more than I speak. I learned that when someone is loud, they often want to hide something. These days, my life is quiet. I make coffee the same way every morning. I keep my bills in one folder. I keep a notepad on my kitchen table because my memory is not as fast as it used to be, and I do not like guessing. I write dates. I write short lines. If something matters, I do not trust my feelings alone. I trust what I can check. My son Tyler lives about 40 minutes away. He has a nice place in a newer neighborhood. He has a spouse, Brooke. They have my grandson, Eli. Eli is 6. He is small for his age, but quick. He has the kind of eyes that watch everything. When he is happy, he hums without knowing it. When he is worried, he goes quiet and tries to make himself smaller. For a long time, I tried to be the easy father. I did not want to be the man who shows up uninvited. I did not want to be the man who asks too many questions. I told myself they were busy. I told myself a young family needs space. I told myself Tyler would call when he had time. But over the last few months, the calls got shorter. When I asked about Eli, the answers got vague. If I offered to help, Tyler said they were fine. If I asked when I could visit, Brooke said they had plans. Sometimes Tyler promised a weekend, then canceled the day before. When I did visit, I felt like a guest who had stayed too long, even if I had only been there 20 minutes. I noticed little things. The family pictures on the wall changed. Eli was always in the center. Brooke was always in the center. Tyler was always there too. I was in one photo near the end of the hallway, half cut off by the frame. I told myself it did not matter. A picture is just a picture. Still, I noticed it. I also noticed the tone. Tyler used to talk to me like I was his father. Lately, he talked to me like I was a neighbor who complained about the trash cans. Brooke talked to me like I was part of the background, not rude in an obvious way, more like I was not fully there. That Friday, I got a call from Tyler around mid-afternoon. I was at my kitchen table sorting mail. His voice sounded rushed. He did not ask how I was. He did not ask about my week. He said they were having a small family dinner that night. He said it was nothing special. He said he might be busy later, so he was calling early. I asked how Eli was doing. Tyler said Eli was fine. The way he said it made me pause. It was too quick, like a door closing. I asked what Eli was up to. Tyler said he was playing. Then he ended the call with a line about needing to get back to something. I sat there for a minute with my phone in my hand. I looked at the notepad on the table. I wrote the date and time. I wrote one sentence. Tyler sounded rushed. I did not know why I wrote it. I just did. Outside my window, the sky was pale and hard. The weather had been cold all week. That kind of cold that makes the air feel sharp. I checked the forecast on my phone. The temperature was already near freezing, and it would drop again after sunset. I thought about Eli in that cold. I thought about how he always forgot his gloves when he visited me. I thought about how Brooke laughed last time and said he was dramatic about the cold. I remembered Eli's hands, red at the knuckles. I remembered how he did not complain, but he held his fingers tight. I told myself to relax. I told myself I was reading too much into a normal call. Then I stood up anyway. I put on my coat. I took my keys. I did not call Tyler back. I did not want an argument over the phone. I did not want them to prepare a story. The drive felt longer than usual. I tried to keep my mind steady. I told myself I was just visiting. I told myself if everything was normal, I would say hello, see Eli, and go home. I repeated it like a simple plan. I stopped at a rest area for a minute, mostly to clear my head. The wind cut across the parking lot. It went right through my coat. I stood by my car and felt the cold in my ears. I thought, again, about a child in a thin shirt. That thought did not fit with a warm family dinner. When I pulled into Tyler's neighborhood, I saw cars along the street, more than usual. The house lights were on, and the windows glowed yellow. From the sidewalk, the place looked cheerful. It looked like a good home. Then I saw Eli. He was on the front porch near the steps, not fully on the lawn, but not fully inside either. He wore a thin, long-sleeved shirt. No jacket, no hat, no gloves. His hair was messy, like he had been inside and then rushed out. He held his arms tight against his chest. His shoulders were up near his ears. His face looked pinched from the cold. For a second, my mind refused to accept it. I thought maybe he was about to come back inside. I thought maybe he had only been there for 10 seconds. Then I saw his knees trembling. I saw him shift his weight from foot to foot like he was trying to keep blood moving. I walked faster. I kept my voice level. I asked him what he was doing outside. He looked at me like he was relieved and scared at the same time. He said, in a small voice, that he was told to wait there. I asked who told him. He glanced at the door. He did not answer. He just looked down and rubbed his hands on his sleeves. I took off my coat and put it around him. It was too big, but it covered him. He leaned into it like he had been holding himself up and finally got permission to stop. I went to the door and tried the handle. It was locked. I could hear voices inside. I could smell food through the cracks. I could hear laughter, plates, and the sound of something on a screen. A warm house, a warm meal, a child outside. I knocked once. Not a gentle knock, a firm one. No one came. I knocked again. I heard someone inside pause. Then the voices resumed, a little louder, like the house was trying to cover itself. I felt my jaw tighten. Not anger, exactly. More like a door closing in my own mind. A simple clarity. This was not a misunderstanding. This was a choice. I tried the handle again. Locked. I looked at Eli. He was staring at the wood grain of the door, as if he had memorized it. I set my shoulder against the door and pushed hard. The frame gave a little. I pushed again, controlled but strong. The lock popped, and the door swung inward with a sharp sound. The room went quiet in a way that told me they all heard it. Warm air hit my face. The smell of roasted meat and bread filled the hallway. The living room lights were bright. People sat around the dining table with plates already served. Tyler's cheeks were pink from warmth and drink. Brooke sat upright, hair perfect, napkin folded like she was hosting a show. A man I recognized, Mason, sat close enough to the table to feel like he belonged there. He was Tyler's friend. He always carried himself like he was in charge, even in someone else's house. They all stared at me, not like people who were worried about a child, like people who were annoyed a rule had been broken. Tyler stood up halfway and asked what I thought I was doing. Brooke's face tightened, and she asked why I came without calling. Mason leaned back in his chair and smiled like this was funny. I did not raise my voice. I did not argue. I did not explain myself in a long speech. I looked at Tyler and Brooke and told them 4 words. I told them to bring him inside now. Brooke tried to respond, but I did not let the moment drift. I stepped aside so they could see Eli standing behind me, wrapped in my coat, eyes wide, lips pale from the cold. For a second, nobody moved. Then Tyler walked past me like he was annoyed and put a hand on Eli's shoulder, not gentle, more like guiding a package. Brooke reached for Eli's arm and started talking fast, saying it was just for a minute, saying he had been acting up, saying he needed a break. She spoke like she was addressing a room, not a child. Eli did not look at her. He looked at me. I kept my face calm. Inside, something was measuring everything. The warmth of the room, the full plates on the table, the fact that no one looked ashamed. Mason finally spoke up, and he made it sound like I was overreacting. He said Tyler and Brooke were good parents. He said I was making a scene. He said I should calm down. He said I was not the one raising the child. Tyler nodded at him, like Mason had the right words. Brooke looked relieved, like someone else had taken the lead. I asked very plainly why Eli was outside in that weather. I asked how long he had been there. Brooke avoided the time question and repeated that it was just a minute. Tyler said Eli needed to learn rules. He said I did not understand modern parenting. He said I was making their night difficult. Then Tyler did something that stung more than the cold. He said I should leave if I could not respect their home. He said I was acting like a stranger who had no boundaries. I looked around. The table, the food, the other plates set out, the warmth, the comfort, and the child, standing near the wall with my coat around him like it was the only safe thing in the room. I told Tyler I understood. I told Brooke I understood. I said I was not there to fight with them. I said I was there for Eli. Brooke's eyes flashed. She asked if I was accusing them of something. Mason made a small sound like a laugh and shook his head like I was an old man with big feelings and no authority. I bent down to Eli and asked if he wanted to come with me for a bit, just to warm up. He nodded quickly. Tyler stepped forward and said no. He said Eli was staying. He said I was not taking him anywhere. He said I was creating a problem. I looked at my grandson. He held my coat closed with both hands. His fingers were still shaking. He tried to hide it. I told Tyler I would not argue in front of Eli. I told him I would leave, for now. I told him I would speak to him soon, properly. Tyler looked satisfied, like he had won the moment. Brooke sat back down and adjusted her napkin, as if returning to a performance. As I turned toward the door, my phone vibrated in my pocket. I glanced at the screen without unlocking it. A message preview showed a short line from an unknown number, saying the school had been worried for a while. I did not answer the message right away. I drove home first. The road felt longer because my mind kept going back to the porch. I kept seeing Eli's small shoulders pulled up against the cold. I kept hearing the warm noise inside the house, like comfort was a door they could close on him. At home, I hung my coat on the back of a chair. My hands still smelled like the outside air. I stood in my kitchen and looked at the clock. It was early evening. In the past, Tyler would sometimes call me after dinner to talk about sports or work. Lately, he did not do that. Lately, he only called when something needed to be solved. I sat at my table and opened my notepad. I wrote the date. I wrote the temperature. I wrote what Eli wore. I wrote that the door was locked. I did not add feelings. I added facts. That is how I stay steady. It did not start like this. Tyler was not always like this with me. When Tyler was younger, he was not loud. He was a boy who liked building things. He asked questions. He stayed close to me in crowds. After his mother left, it was mostly just him and me. I worked long hours, but I tried to be there. I learned how to pack lunches. I learned how to wash uniforms. I learned how to smile at school events even when I was tired. I did not tell Tyler many times that I was tired. I did not want him to feel like a burden. I wanted him to feel safe. When Tyler became an adult, I was proud. He finished school. He got a stable job. He met Brooke. At first, Brooke seemed polite. She smiled a lot. She said the right things. She called me sir. She brought a dessert the first time she came to my house. I thought we were building something solid. Over time, small things shifted. Brooke started correcting Tyler in front of me. She did it with a sweet voice, but it was still correction. Tyler would laugh and say he forgot. Then he would look at Brooke like he was asking if he was allowed to speak. I noticed that. I told myself it was just a couple learning. When they wanted to buy a house, they came to me. Tyler said they were close, but the numbers did not work. Brooke said the market was hard. I asked what they needed. Tyler said they needed help with the down payment. He said it would be temporary. He said he would pay me back. I said I understood. I gave them the help. I did not make a big show of it. I did not hold it over their heads. I told myself it was an investment in my family. I told myself it was for Eli, too, even before Eli existed. After the house, it became normal for them to ask, not always for money, sometimes for time. They asked me to watch Eli for a few hours. Then it became whole days. Then it became weekends. I loved being with Eli, so I said yes. I picked him up. I fed him. I played simple games on the floor until my knees hurt. I read books in a slow voice. When Eli fell asleep on my couch, I felt like my life had purpose again. But the tone changed. Tyler stopped saying thank you in a real way. Brooke stopped asking if I was free. She started telling me what time they would drop Eli off. If I said I had plans, she sounded annoyed. If I asked for a little notice, she acted like I was being difficult. There were also small public moments. They would invite me to a restaurant, but they would not wait for me before ordering. They would talk about family plans as if I was not sitting there. Sometimes Brooke would take a photo of Tyler and Eli and post it later. I was standing right beside them in real life, but I was not in the picture online. Once, at a birthday party for Eli, someone asked Tyler if his parents were coming. Tyler gestured toward Brooke's parents and said they were there. I was holding a bag of gifts in my hands. He did not mention me at all. I stood there and smiled anyway. I told myself it was a mistake. I told myself it did not matter. Then Mason became a regular part of their circle. Mason was Tyler's friend from work. He was the type who filled a room with his voice. He talked like he had answers for everything. He liked to clap Tyler on the shoulder and speak for him. When Mason was around, Tyler acted different. He laughed louder. He agreed faster. He looked like he wanted to be seen as strong. The first time Mason spoke to me, he asked what I used to do. I told him I worked in logistics. He smiled and said it sounded simple. He said Tyler worked in a field that mattered now. He said the world had moved on. Tyler laughed like it was a good joke. I did not argue. I do not compete with people who need to win every room. I just watched. After Eli was born, Brooke started talking about rules a lot. Rules about visits, rules about gifts, rules about what I could feed Eli. Some rules made sense. Some felt like control. If I asked why, Brooke said it was their way. Tyler repeated her words like a recording. When I tried to bring up how I felt, Tyler said I was too sensitive. He said I was making problems. He said Brooke was just trying to keep things organized. He said I should not take it personally. I started to understand the pattern. Tyler wanted comfort. Brooke wanted control. Mason wanted attention. And I was the quiet man in the background who made things easier. That night, after I came home from the porch incident, I did answer the unknown message. I kept it short. I asked who it was. The answer came a few minutes later. It was a parent from Eli's class. Someone I did not know well. They said they did not want trouble. They said they just did not like what they had seen. They said Eli often came to school underdressed for the weather. They said he sometimes said he had to stand by the door at home when adults were upset. I read that line twice. I did not send a long reply. I asked what days they remembered. They sent 2 dates. I wrote them down. The next morning, Tyler called me early. His voice was sharp. He said I embarrassed them. He said Brooke cried after I left. He said Mason said I was unstable. He said I had no right to force my way in. I listened. I let him finish. Then I asked one question. I asked why the door was locked with Eli outside. Tyler did not answer the question. He talked around it. He said Eli was told to cool down. He said Eli was being stubborn. He said Eli was safe because the porch had a roof. I asked how long Eli was out there. Tyler got louder. He said I always did this. He said I always made him feel like a bad son. He said I was trying to control his home. He said I should remember my place. That phrase stayed with me. Remember my place. It was not about the porch anymore. It was about power. Tyler suggested we meet to talk, away from the house. He said it would be better, calmer. He chose a coffee shop near his job. I agreed because I wanted to see his face when I asked simple questions. Phones make people brave. Real life makes them reveal more. The coffee shop was bright and busy. People typed on laptops. A couple sat near the window with a stroller. The smell of coffee was strong. Tyler arrived with Brooke and Mason. That told me a lot. If Tyler wanted a calm talk, he would not bring a loud friend. They sat across from me like a small team. Brooke placed her phone on the table, screen up. Mason leaned back in his chair, taking up space. Tyler looked tired, but also determined, like he had practiced lines. Tyler said I needed to apologize. Brooke said I scared Eli by making a scene. Mason said he had never seen a grandfather act that way. He said I should be careful because people could misunderstand. I did not react to Mason. I looked at Tyler. I told Tyler I did not come to discuss my pride. I came to discuss Eli's safety in cold weather. Brooke said the weather was not that bad. She said children need to learn consequences. She said I was from a different time. Tyler nodded. He said I did not understand how they ran their home. I asked again how long Eli was outside. Brooke said it was not important. She said Eli was fine. She said Eli was dramatic. She said if I kept pushing, I would confuse him. I watched Tyler while she spoke. He did not defend Eli. He did not correct Brooke. He just let her lead. It was like he had handed her the steering wheel of his own family. Then Tyler switched the topic to me. He said I was lonely. He said I was trying to insert myself into their lives because I had nothing else. He said I should find hobbies. He said I should stop using Eli as an excuse to visit. That hurt, but it also clarified things. Tyler wanted to make my concern look selfish. That way he did not have to answer the real question. I told Tyler I understood he wanted boundaries. I told him I respected reasonable boundaries. Then I told him that a boundary is not the same as locking a door on a child in freezing air. Brooke's eyes narrowed. She said I was accusing her of being a bad mother. Mason said I was stepping over a line. Tyler said I was making things worse. I stayed calm. I told them I did not want a fight. I told them I wanted a clear plan for Eli in cold weather. I told them I wanted to know that if Eli was upset, the answer would not be sending him outside without proper clothes. Mason leaned forward. He said, in a slow voice, that I needed to understand something. He said Tyler and Brooke were the parents. He said if they decided I was a problem, I would not be welcome. He said a grandfather does not get a vote. Tyler looked at me and repeated the message in his own way. He said if I kept pushing, I would not see Eli for a long time. He said he could make that choice, and no one could stop him. I nodded once. I told Tyler I heard him. I told him I would not argue in a coffee shop. I told him I would handle things properly through the systems that matter. Brooke looked satisfied, like she believed that meant I would back down. Mason smiled like he had won. Tyler stood up and ended the meeting quickly. I stayed seated for a moment after they left. I watched the door close behind them. Then I opened my notepad again. I wrote what Tyler said. I wrote the date and time. I wrote that Brooke avoided the time question again. I wrote that Mason spoke like he had authority over my family. When I got home, I went to my garage. I pulled out an empty folder and wrote a simple label on it with a marker. It was not dramatic, it was not angry, it was just organized. Then I sat back at my kitchen table and looked at the list of dates I had started. I did not feel rage. I felt something colder and clearer than that. I finally accepted that Tyler was not afraid of being wrong. He was afraid of losing control of his image, and he was willing to use Eli as a tool to protect that image. The next Monday, I went to Eli's school at pickup time. I did not go to make a scene. I did not go to scare anyone. I went because I needed to see what his normal day looked like. I needed to know if the porch incident was a one-time mistake or part of a pattern. I parked one street over and walked the last block. The air was still cold. There was old snow near the curb in dirty piles. Parents stood in small groups, talking about homework and schedules. Most of them had warm coats, hats, and gloves. Some held coffee cups, some checked phones. Some waved when they saw their children. I stayed a little back. I did not want to look like I was hunting for drama. I just watched. When the doors opened, children came out in a loose line. Eli came with his class. He walked slower than some of the other kids. He held his backpack straps tight like it helped him feel steady. He looked left and right, scanning faces. When he saw Tyler's car, his body changed. His shoulders lifted. His steps got smaller. Tyler was not outside the car. He stayed in the driver's seat and tapped the steering wheel. Brooke was in the passenger seat, looking at her phone. When Eli got close, Tyler lowered the window and said something without smiling. Eli nodded fast. Then he opened the back door and climbed in. I told myself I might be reading too much into it. Maybe Tyler had a long day, maybe Brooke was tired. But I could not ignore the way Eli moved. He moved like a child, trying not to cause a problem. I did not walk up to them. I did not wave. I did not want Tyler to pull Eli out of the car just to prove a point. I waited until they drove away. Then I went into the school office. Inside, it was warm and bright. A sign on the wall reminded visitors to sign in. I signed my name and wrote "grandfather" in the visitor line. The office worker looked at the paper and then looked at me. I asked if someone could speak with me for a few minutes. I kept my voice calm. I said I had a small concern and I wanted advice. I did not accuse anyone. I did not use big emotional words. I just asked for a short meeting. After a short wait, a woman came out and introduced herself as Ms. Alvarez. She had a steady face and careful eyes. She did not act alarmed. She acted professional. She led me to a small room with 2 chairs and a table. I told her I was Eli's grandfather. I told her I was worried about cold weather and clothing. I told her I had seen Eli outside in a thin shirt in freezing air. I said I did not know the whole situation. I said I did not want to make a false story. I said I only wanted to know what the school had noticed. Ms. Alvarez listened without interrupting. When I finished, she asked simple questions. She asked how often I saw Eli. She asked if I had talked to Tyler and Brooke. She asked if Eli had ever said he felt unsafe. I answered carefully. I told her I had tried talking, but they avoided my questions. I told her Eli was quiet and he did not give long explanations. Ms. Alvarez took a breath. Then she said something that made my stomach tighten. She said the school had noticed clothing issues more than once. She said there were days when the weather was very cold and Eli came without proper layers. She said staff had called home on those days. She said they often got short answers. She said sometimes the calls were not returned. She said they documented what they could, like they always do. I asked if she could tell me specific dates. She said she could not hand me internal notes like that, but she could tell me the general pattern. She said she had also noticed Eli's behavior. She said he was polite and quiet, but he acted tense when adults raised their voices nearby. She said he sometimes asked permission for small things that most children do not ask about. She said he seemed worried about making mistakes. I sat still and listened. I did not show anger. I did not argue. I just let the facts land where they landed. I asked what the school normally does in these cases. Ms. Alvarez explained the steps in a calm way. She said they start with calls and reminders. She said they offer resources. She said they keep notes. She said they watch for patterns. She said if concerns grow, there are official channels. She did not threaten. She did not push me toward any action. She simply explained how schools protect children. I thanked her. I told her I would not make her job harder. I told her I only wanted Eli to be warm and safe. I told her I would be careful about what I said and how I said it. Before I left, Ms. Alvarez asked me one question. She asked if Eli had a warm coat at my home. I told her he did. She nodded and said that was good. Then she said that sometimes children do better when at least one adult in their life stays steady and consistent. That line stayed with me all the way back to my car. At home, I opened my notepad again. I wrote down what Ms. Alvarez told me in simple phrases. Clothing issues more than once. Calls home short. Eli tense around raised voices. I wrote the date and time of my visit. I did not exaggerate. I did not add extra meaning. I just wrote what was said. Then I did something I had not done before. I printed the weather forecast for that day and put it in the folder I had labeled. It felt strange, like I was becoming someone else. Not a grandfather who brings toys and snacks. A grandfather who keeps records. But I reminded myself that calm people keep records when calm words are ignored. That evening, Tyler called me. His voice was sharp again. He asked why the school said I was asking questions. He said I was trying to start trouble. He said Brooke was furious. He said I was making them look bad. I told Tyler I went to the school because I needed clarity. I told him I would have preferred to get it from him. I told him I asked him the same questions more than once, and he did not answer them. Tyler said I had no right. He said I was crossing boundaries. He said I was acting like I owned their family. I told him I did not own their family. I told him I did not need ownership to care. I told him that when a child is cold outside, the adult response should be simple. He did not respond to that. He moved back to control. He said if I kept doing this, he would take steps to keep me away. He said he had spoken to people. He said he would make sure I could not show up again. I told him I understood he could try to block me from his home. I told him I would not force my way into his house again. I told him that was not the point. Then Brooke took the phone. Her voice was cold and tight. She said I was trying to turn the school against them. She said I was imagining things. She said Eli was sensitive and needed discipline. She said I was too soft and I was confusing him. I told Brooke I was not confusing Eli. I told her Eli was already confused. I told her he was trying to read adult moods like a weather report. Brooke said I was disrespectful. She said I was no longer welcome at their home. She said I should stop calling. She said if I wanted updates, I could wait for Tyler to reach out. I said I heard her. I said I would not argue. I said I hoped they would think carefully about what they were doing. After the call ended, my phone buzzed again. This time it was a message in the family group chat. Tyler wrote a long paragraph about boundaries and respect. He said I showed up uninvited. He said I scared their child. He said I was getting worse as I got older. He said they needed space from me. Some relatives responded quickly. Brooke's mother wrote that young parents need support, not criticism. A cousin wrote that I should apologize and move on. Another relative added that older people sometimes overreact. No one asked about Eli being outside. No one asked about the weather. They reacted to the story Tyler fed them. I stared at the chat for a full minute. I did not type anything. I did not defend myself in that space. I knew how that game works. The loudest person wins, not the most accurate person. Instead, I copied the message and saved it to my notes. I saved the timestamp. I saved the names of who supported it. I did not do it to punish them. I did it because I could feel the shape of what they were building. They were building a story where I was the problem. That story could become a tool. That night I slept poorly. Not because I was angry, because I was alert. The way you feel when you realize you have been walking through a room with a loose floorboard and you did not see it until now. The next day I went to the school again, but I did not walk in. I waited in my car across the street. I watched pickup time from a distance. I watched Eli come out. I watched Tyler's car. I watched Brooke's face through the window. I watched Eli climb into the back seat. Eli turned his head once and looked out the rear window. He did not see me, or maybe he did. I could not tell, but his face looked tired in a way that did not belong to a 6-year-old. When I got home, I sat at my kitchen table with a glass of water. I did not drink alcohol. I did not want fog in my head. I wanted clean thinking. I thought about my role. I thought about what I could do and what I could not do. I could not control Tyler. I could not control Brooke. I could not force them to act like parents who put a child first. I could not convince Mason to stop performing. But I could control my own actions. I could control how I respond. I could control what I collect, what I document, and how I move through official channels. That is when the switch flipped quietly. Not rage, not a loud promise, just a clear decision. Well, I went to the garage and opened the labeled folder. I placed the printed forecast inside. I added a clean page titled Timeline. I wrote the porch incident in one short line. I wrote the coffee shop meeting in one short line. I wrote the school meeting in one short line. Then I placed the USB drive beside the folder again. I did not open anything dramatic. I did not pull out any papers to show myself I had power. I simply made space for facts to live in one place. Then I called someone I trusted. It was an old friend who works in a field where people respect procedure. I did not ask for favors. I did not ask for shortcuts. I asked what steps are correct when a child's basic needs are not being met and parents refuse to answer simple questions. My friend told me to stay calm and stay factual. My friend told me to write down everything. My friend told me to avoid public fights. My friend told me that systems move slowly, but they move best when the information is clear and consistent. I thanked him. I ended the call. I looked at my notepad and wrote one final line for that day. I wrote that I was done begging for respect. From that point on, I would only deal in facts and proper steps. The week after my visit to the school, I kept my life simple on purpose. I still made coffee in the morning. I still washed my dishes right after I used them. I still folded my clothes the same way. I needed normal things around me because the rest did not feel normal anymore. I also stopped doing something I had done for years. I stopped waiting for Tyler to do the right thing on his own. On Tuesday, the temperature dropped again. The wind was dry and sharp. I drove past the school at lunchtime, not to hover, but to see what the day looked like when I was not expected. I stayed on the far side of the street. I did not get out. I watched staff walk children from one building to another. I watched how the kids held their sleeves and tucked their chins. After school, I went to the grocery store and bought a child-size hat and gloves. I bought a warm scarf, too. Nothing fancy, just warm. I put them in a clean bag and wrote Eli's name on it with a marker. Part of me wanted to drop the bag at Tyler's door and leave. Another part of me knew that would become a fight. Brooke would call it an attack. Tyler would call it control. Mason would turn it into a joke. So I did not go to their house. I went to the school office again the next day. I asked Ms. Alvarez if I could leave a small bag for Eli, only for weather, no other message. I told her I was not trying to push into their home. I told her I only wanted Eli to have something warm if he needed it. She looked at me for a long moment. Then she said the school could hold it, but they would also inform Tyler and Brooke. She said transparency matters. I told her I understood. I thanked her and left the bag. That afternoon my phone rang. It was Brooke. Her voice was tight. She said I was going behind their backs. She said I was trying to make the school think they could not provide basics. She said I was embarrassing them. I kept my voice even. I told her I did not hide anything. I told her the school said they would inform them. I told her I did not leave a note. I told her it was only warm items for cold weather. Brooke said Eli had plenty. She said I was making problems. She said I was doing this because I wanted attention. I told her I did not want attention. I told her I wanted Eli to be warm. I told her it should not be a debate. She ended the call fast. That night Tyler sent a message. He said I needed to stop contacting the school. He said I was not a parent. He said I was acting like I had authority. I read the message. I did not answer right away. I saved it. Then I opened my folder in the garage and added a new page to my timeline. I wrote one short line about the bag. I wrote one short line about Brooke's call. I wrote one short line about Tyler's message. I did not enjoy doing that. It made me feel like I was preparing for something I never wanted to face. But I also knew that if I stayed only in feelings, Tyler and Brooke would always win. They were better at loud emotions. I was better at steady facts. 2 days later, something happened that changed my pace. Brooke dropped Eli at my house without warning. It was early evening. I heard a car door, then quick footsteps. When I opened my front door, Eli stood there with a small backpack. Brooke stayed on the sidewalk. She said she had an appointment. She said Tyler was busy. She said I needed to watch Eli for a few hours. I told her I needed notice. She said she did not have time for a discussion. She said this was what family does. Then she drove off. Eli walked inside slowly. He did not look excited. He looked relieved. He took off his shoes neatly and placed them by the mat like he was trying to be perfect. He did not run to the living room. He did not ask for snacks. He just stood there, waiting. I asked if he was okay. He nodded, but his face was pale. His hands were cold. I touched his forehead with the back of my fingers. It felt cool, too. I brought him to the kitchen and made warm soup. He ate, but he did not talk much. He kept glancing toward the window like he expected someone to appear and pull him away. I asked him if he had been outside again. He hesitated. Then he gave me a small nod. I asked if he had his coat at school. He shook his head. I asked why. He shrugged like he had learned that explaining things makes adults mad. I did not push him for a long story. I did not want him to feel like he needed to choose sides. I just told him he did not do anything wrong by being cold. I told him being cold is a body signal, not a bad choice. After he finished eating, he sat on the couch with a blanket. His body finally relaxed. That is when I noticed he was coughing a little. Not constant, just enough to catch my attention. I checked his temperature with the small thermometer I keep in my bathroom cabinet. It was not high, but I could tell he was not fully well. I called Tyler first. I wanted to do the correct thing. Tyler did not answer. I called Brooke. She answered on the second ring. I told her Eli was cold and coughing. I told her I planned to take him to urgent care to be safe. I told her I would text the address and keep her updated. Brooke's voice rose. She said I was trying to create a record. She said I was trying to make them look bad. She said Eli was fine. I told her I was not asking for permission to care for a child who was in my home. I told her I was informing her. I told her that is what responsible adults do. She said Tyler would be angry. I told her Tyler could be angry later. Eli needed steady care now. I put Eli in my car and drove to the local urgent care. The waiting room was bright and dry. A television played a daytime show no one watched. People sat far apart, scrolling on phones. I filled out the forms and kept it simple. I wrote my name and relationship. I wrote the symptoms. I did not write accusations. I did not write a speech. Eli sat close to me. He held my sleeve with 2 fingers, like he did not want to pull too hard. I asked him if he was scared. He said no, but his voice was small. I told him we were only checking his body, like checking a car light. I told him it does not mean something is terrible. It means adults pay attention. A nurse called us back. She asked questions in a calm tone. Eli answered softly. I helped when he looked confused. The nurse checked him, listened, and said we were doing the right thing by coming in. The provider who saw him was calm and practical. They said his lungs sounded clear. They said he looked chilled and tired, and he needed rest, warm fluids, and proper clothes for the weather. They did not make it dramatic. They made it basic. Before we left, I asked for a printed visit summary for my records. I did not wave it around. I did not take photos of it. I folded it and put it in my pocket. In the car, Eli fell asleep in the seat. His cheeks had color again. His breathing was quiet. I looked at him and felt something heavy settle in my chest. Not panic, not anger, responsibility. When we got back to my house, I texted Brooke and Tyler. I told them Eli had been checked. I told them he needed rest and warm clothing. I told them he was sleeping and safe. Tyler called 10 minutes later. His voice was hard. He said I had no right. He said I was trying to build a case. He said I was trying to take their child away. I let him speak. Then I told him something simple. I told him that if he did not want me to take Eli to urgent care, then he needed to answer his phone when I called. I told him that responsible parents do not ignore calls when their child is unwell. Tyler said I was threatening him. I told him I was not threatening anything. I told him I was explaining cause and effect. He demanded I bring Eli home right away. I told him Eli was asleep and needed rest. I told him he could pick Eli up, but I would not wake him just to satisfy an adult's pride. Tyler arrived 30 minutes later. Mason was with him. That was not an accident. Tyler wanted backup. He wanted a witness who would support his story. Tyler walked in like he owned my living room. Mason stood behind him with folded arms, looking around my home like he was inspecting it. Tyler demanded Eli. I pointed toward the couch, where Eli slept under a blanket. Tyler moved fast, then paused when he saw Eli's face. For a second, Tyler looked like a father again. Then Mason said something low, and Tyler's face hardened. Tyler said I crossed a line. He said he was going to make sure this never happened again. He said I would not see Eli if I kept acting like this. I told Tyler I did not want fights. I told him I wanted a plan. I told him that sending a child outside in thin clothes in freezing weather is not discipline. It is neglect. Tyler reacted like I hit him with a heavy word. Mason stepped forward and said, I should be careful with accusations. He said I was an old man trying to control a young family. He said people would laugh if I tried to take this anywhere. I looked at Mason and finally gave him my attention. I told him he was not family. I told him he did not get a vote in my home. I told him to step back. Mason smirked, but he stepped back. Tyler picked up Eli carefully. Eli woke and looked around in confusion. He saw me and reached one hand toward me without thinking. Tyler noticed it. His jaw tightened. Brooke did not come. She stayed away and let Tyler do the unpleasant part. That also told me something. After they left, I cleaned my kitchen, even though it was already clean. That is what I do when my mind needs order. Then I took the folded visit summary and placed it in my labeled folder in the garage. I added a note to my timeline about the urgent care visit, only the date and the reason. I added another note about Tyler arriving with Mason. I kept it short and factual. The next morning, I went to the bank. I did not go to withdraw cash. I did not go to do anything dramatic. I went to understand what was connected to my name and what was not. I asked about automatic payments I had set up years ago to help Tyler when he first bought the house. I asked about any accounts where I was still listed as a contact. I asked what I could change and what I could not. The banker spoke in a careful, neutral tone. They explained what was in my control and what was separate. I made changes where I could, not as revenge, as boundaries. I set alerts. I removed anything that made it easy for Tyler to treat my support like a permanent utility. From the bank, I drove to an office building where Attorney Lynn worked. I did not walk in holding a folder like a movie scene. I walked in like a man who wants correct steps. I sat in a small waiting area and watched people come and go. I listened to the quiet sounds of a place built on procedure. When my name was called, I stood and followed. Attorney Lynn asked me to explain the situation in order. I did. I used dates. I used facts. I said what I saw and what was said. I did not add guesses. I did not insult Tyler or Brooke. I kept my voice steady. Attorney Lynn listened, then told me to keep doing what I was already doing. They told me to avoid public fights. They told me not to argue in group chats. They told me to write things down and keep copies of what I receive. They told me that if I needed to take action, it should be clean, calm, and documented. I asked what action could look like without breaking the law or making Eli feel pulled apart. Attorney Lynn explained options in general terms. They said the system cares about patterns and proof. They said the goal should be the child's stability, not punishing adults. I left the office with the same calm face I brought in. But inside, I felt more grounded. Not because I felt powerful, because I felt clear. That weekend, Tyler posted pictures online of a family dinner. Warm lights, full plates, smiling faces. Mason in the background like he belonged. People commented about what a perfect home they had. I looked at those pictures for a few seconds, then closed the app. I did not argue with a photo. I did not fight with a caption. Instead, I went into my garage and checked my folder again. I straightened the pages. I made sure every note had a date. I made sure I could explain each line without emotion. Then I sat at my kitchen table and wrote a short rule for myself. I wrote that if Tyler and Brooke wanted to live by image, then I would respond with structure. I would not shout. I would not beg. I would use the systems they thought I was too old to understand. I woke up the next day and did not check my phone right away. I made coffee first. I stood by the sink and watched steam rise. I needed my mind to be clear before I let other people fill it. When I did check my phone, the family group chat was still active. Tyler had posted again. He wrote that I was crossing lines and making problems. He wrote that I showed up uninvited and scared Eli. He wrote that I was not respecting their home. People responded with short support messages and little heart icons. A few people wrote that families should not fight. No one asked why a child was outside in the cold. No one asked why the door was locked. I did not reply. I saved screenshots and placed them in a folder on my computer. I named the folder with the month and year. I did not do that to build a public argument. I did it because I could see Tyler shaping the story on purpose. If the story became a tool later, I wanted to remember the exact words. Around noon, I got a message from the parent who had contacted me before. They said Eli told their child he sometimes had to wait by the door when adults were upset. They said they were sorry to bother me, but it did not feel right to ignore it. I thanked them. I asked if they remembered any dates. They gave me one date from earlier in the month. I wrote it down. I kept my reply short and calm. I did not ask them to do more. I did not want to pull strangers into a family conflict. Later that afternoon, I received a short email from the school. It was polite. It said they were aware that I had left warm items for Eli and that they had informed the parents. It also said the school's focus was Eli's comfort and learning. The tone was neutral, but I could hear the message under it. They wanted adults to solve things without turning the school into a battlefield. I understood that. I did not want the school to be my stage. I wanted it to be Eli's safe place. But I drove to the school after work hours and asked Ms. Alvarez if she had 2 minutes. I did not ask for private notes. I did not demand details. I only asked one question, and I asked what I should do if I believed a child's basic needs in cold weather were not being met and the parents refused to speak plainly. Ms. Alvarez looked at me carefully. Then she told me to keep doing what I was already doing. She said to stay factual. She said to avoid public arguments. She said to focus on what can be observed and documented, not what can be guessed. She said that when adults argue loudly, children feel like they caused it, even if they did not. I told her I agreed, I thanked her, and left. That evening, Tyler called me. His voice sounded calmer than before, which made me more cautious, not less. He said he wanted a fresh start. He said we should sit down like adults. He said there would be a family dinner on Saturday and it would be a good time to clear the air. He said everyone would be there, and it would help if I showed I could be respectful. I asked if Eli would be there. Tyler said yes. I asked if Eli would be warm and inside. Tyler paused, then said yes, of course. He said I needed to stop implying things. He said Brooke was tired of being judged. I told Tyler I would come. I told him I would be calm. I told him I would not argue in front of Eli. Tyler sounded satisfied, like he believed he had set the rules and I had accepted them. After the call, I sat at my kitchen table and stared at my notepad for a long time. I could feel what Tyler wanted. He wanted a public moment where I looked unreasonable. He wanted relatives to watch me fall back in line. He wanted the story to end with me apologizing, so the porch incident would become a harmless misunderstanding. I did not plan to give him that ending. The next day, I visited the bank again. I did not do anything dramatic at the counter. I asked simple questions. I confirmed what payments still connected my name to Tyler's household costs. I confirmed which things were personal gifts and which things were structured support. I asked how to pause or adjust support in a clean way, without confusion. The banker explained the options and reminded me to read every detail. I listened, I took notes. I did not sign anything in a rush. I told them I would return after I reviewed my own records at home. From the bank, I drove to Attorney Lynn's office. I did not carry my folder into the lobby. I carried a small notebook and my phone. I wanted to speak first, not perform. When I met Attorney Lynn, I repeated the facts again, in order: porch incident, coffee shop meeting, school visit, urgent care visit, Tyler's messages, Brooke's call, the family group chat posts. I told Attorney Lynn about the Saturday dinner Tyler invited me to and how Tyler described it. Attorney Lynn did not tell me to confront Tyler with anger. Attorney Lynn told me to keep my language simple and clean. They told me to be careful about timing and setting. They told me to remember that some people only respect boundaries when those boundaries have structure behind them. Then Attorney Lynn gave me instructions on how to organize what I had, not as a speech, as a packet, dates, short descriptions, clear timeline, names, locations, outside confirmation when possible. They also told me what not to do. No shouting, no public accusations, no emotional arguments in group chats, no threats. I told them I could do that. On Friday evening, I prepared my home like I was preparing for a power outage. I charged my phone fully. I charged a small backup battery. I printed a blank calendar page for the month and marked a few dates that mattered. I put everything in one drawer in my desk. I also packed a small bag with warm items, the same kind I had left at the school, a hat, gloves, a scarf. I did not plan to hand it to Tyler as an insult. I planned to have it ready, just in case. A child's comfort should not depend on adult pride. I slept early that night, but my sleep was light. I woke up before sunrise. I made coffee again. I looked at my notepad. I wrote the date and the words Saturday dinner. Then I wrote one more line. Stay calm, stay simple. Midday, I got another message in the group chat. Brooke wrote that she hoped everyone could be mature and positive. She added a smiling icon. A few relatives replied with encouragement. Mason replied too, using a short joke about family drama. That told me Mason was definitely invited. That told me Tyler wanted a witness again. In the afternoon, Nina, my neighbor, knocked on my door. She is the kind of person who notices things without acting like she is spying. She said she saw Tyler's car earlier in the week and wondered if everything was okay. She asked it gently, like she was offering help, not pushing into my life. I told her I appreciated her concern. I told her I was dealing with a family issue and trying to handle it the right way. I did not give her details. I did not want to turn my street into a rumor mill. Nina nodded and said that if I ever needed someone to confirm a time or a visit, she could tell the truth about what she saw. She said she does not like when adults play games around children. I thanked her. I wrote her name in my notepad under possible witness, then felt strange about it. I never wanted my life to become a list of witnesses. But I also knew I did not create this situation. I was simply responding to it like a careful adult. A few hours before the dinner, Tyler texted me the time again, like a reminder. He wrote that he expected no drama. He wrote that Brooke had worked hard on the meal. He wrote that I should come with a good attitude. I replied with one sentence. I said I would arrive on time. Then I took a shower and dressed in clean, simple clothes. Nothing flashy. I wore the coat I had put around Eli the night I found him outside. I did not wear it for symbolism. I wore it because it was warm, and because it reminded me why I was doing this. Before I left, I stood in my kitchen and looked around my quiet house. It was still. The clock ticked softly. My sink was empty. My table was clean. My life was small, but it was honest. I took my keys and the small warm bag and placed them in my car. I did not bring my big folder. I did not bring a stack of papers. I did not want to walk into Tyler's house looking like I came to win a fight. I wanted to walk in looking like what I am, a calm man who pays attention. The drive to Tyler's neighborhood felt different this time, not because I was nervous, because I was done hoping someone else would fix it. I had already tried talking. I had already tried being patient. All that did was teach Tyler and Brooke that I would accept whatever they gave me. As I turned onto Tyler's street, I saw cars parked along the curb again. Lights were on. The house glowed warm through the windows. From the outside, it looked like a perfect family evening. I parked a little down the street and sat in my car for a moment. I took one slow breath. I reminded myself of my rule. Calm voice, simple words. No arguing in front of Eli. Then I stepped out, closed the car door quietly, and walked toward the house. I walked up the steps and saw Mason open the door before I could knock. He held his phone up like he was ready for a show. Tyler stood behind him, and Brooke was already at the table with relatives. The house was warm again. The food smell was strong again. The smiles were already in place. Mason made a comment about me finally arriving, like I was late to my own trial. Tyler told me to come in and act normal. Brooke said the evening was about family and that I should not ruin it. I stepped inside, took off my coat, and looked for Eli. He was not at the table. He was not in the living room. I asked where he was. Brooke said he was in his room because he needed to learn rules. Tyler nodded like that explained everything. I asked if he was warm. Brooke said he had blankets. I asked if he was allowed to come out to eat. Tyler said he would decide later, depending on behavior. Mason added another comment, trying to get people to laugh. I did not argue. I did not raise my voice. I told Tyler I was not there to perform for relatives. I told him I was there because I had serious concerns about Eli being sent outside in freezing air and about repeated clothing issues. Tyler turned toward the table and told everyone I was exaggerating again. He said I was lonely and looking for a fight. Brooke added that I was trying to control their home. A few relatives sighed like they wanted the topic to disappear. Then Brooke did something simple but revealing. She said Eli was fine and that the school had no right to question them. She said they had warned the school to stop letting me interfere. She said they were the parents, and that was the end of it. I listened and let her keep talking. Because when people feel safe, they say more than they should. I asked calmly if they were proud of locking the door with Eli outside. Tyler said the door was locked because they did not want me barging in. Mason laughed and said I was proving their point. Tyler repeated that I had no right to show up, and he said he would keep me away for good. That was the moment I stopped seeing this as a family disagreement. This was a pattern, and they were comfortable with it. I told Tyler I would not argue in his dining room. I told him I would handle things properly. I told him we could talk through professionals who keep records and follow rules. Brooke's face changed. She asked if I was threatening them. I told her I was not threatening anything. I told her I was choosing the correct process. I asked to see Eli before I left. Tyler refused. Brooke said Eli did not need drama. Mason said I should leave before I embarrassed myself. So I did something I had not done before. I walked down the hallway and knocked on Eli's door. I did not push it open. I asked softly if he was okay. Eli opened the door a little. His hair was messy, and his cheeks were red like he had been crying earlier. He looked at me like he was trying to read if it was safe to speak. I told him I loved him. I told him he did not do anything wrong. I told him I would see him again soon. He nodded, very small, and closed the door. When I turned back, Tyler was at the end of the hall with his face tight. He told me to get out. Mason stood behind him with his phone still up. Brooke stayed by the table and acted like I was the problem they needed to remove. I walked out without another word. 3 days later, Attorney Lynn called me and told me the meeting was scheduled. Tyler thought it was a normal family discussion with a mediator. He did not understand that the system does not care about his confidence. It cares about facts. The meeting took place in the family court building, in a plain lobby with chairs and a counter. There were other families there, quiet and tense. A clerk called names in a steady voice. Security watched calmly. No one cared who had the loudest story. Tyler arrived with Brooke and Mason again. Mason tried to come in like he belonged. A staff member stopped him and told him he could not be part of it. Mason argued, but the staff member did not change their tone. Mason had to wait outside. Tyler looked shaken by that alone. When we sat down, Attorney Lynn placed a neat packet on the table. This was the first time Tyler saw what I'd collected. The timeline, the weather reports, the urgent care visit summary, the school email, the screenshots of Tyler's own messages and group chat claims, notes with dates and times, a simple list of concerns written without insults. Tyler tried to talk over it. The mediator stopped him and asked him to answer clear questions. Brooke tried to cry and say I was attacking her. The mediator asked for details and consistency, not tears. Then Attorney Lynn presented the part Tyler never expected, the written support terms I had set years ago, tied to basic standards for Eli's care. The bank confirmations showing changes I had already made, cleanly and legally. the occupancy notice tied to the property agreement, because my name was still linked to key parts of that house arrangement. Tyler's face went pale. He kept looking at the pages like they were in a foreign language. The mediator explained the immediate steps: a safety plan for Eli, clear clothing requirements for school days, a communication rule that could be checked, limits on who could be around Eli when emotions ran high, a follow-up date already set with consequences if they ignored it. Tyler finally asked me what I wanted. I told him I wanted Eli warm, fed, and treated like a child, not a tool. I told him I wanted fewer speeches and more responsibility. The clerk returned with stamped papers and handed them across the table. Tyler's hands shook as he took them. Brooke stopped crying and went very still. I watched them read the first page, and I saw the moment they understood the same truth I had understood weeks ago. In this building, their image meant nothing, only their actions did.